So in your scenario, talking about happy pigs, do you think it's perhaps happy animals? Do you think it's perhaps more of an injustice, killing an animal that wants to live possibly more than the animals in this situation?
Sorry, can you ask me that question again? Because it was
Absolutely.
an extraordinary question. Go on.
This past weekend, I took part in my first Cube of Truth. For those who aren't familiar, the Cube of Truth is similar to an Earthlings event with a different structure. So if you're curious about learning more, be sure to check out my debrief that I did on the Cube of Truth event itself. Now, during the event, I recorded 2 different interviews. This is the first of them. During the interview, I learned that this individual had been farming for 57 years, and while we had different understandings and different beliefs, we managed to have an open exchange, which I think was really productive. He agreed to have the audio recorded, but preferred not to have his face recorded, so I've blurred his image to protect his identity. So, yeah, I hope you enjoy. Sorry. So like here they're showing some of the pig farming. I don't know what you have experience with yourself.
I do.
So what's been your experience?
Free range, open run, happy pigs. But people want to eat pork, so yeah, they'll farm it. But I certainly wouldn't do this. This is disgraceful. This I have a problem with.
So
Space. That is a sick pig. Oh Jesus.
yeah, and I think that's why we're here today, because a lot of this isn't known about.
Oh yeah, I know about it. That is truly gross. You don't. This isn't farming. This has got nothing to do with farming. In my view.
So what?
This is just abuse.
So what happened to the pigs on the farm that you've worked on in the past at the end of their life?
They get raised properly. They're happy pigs, so they are happy animals, and sheep and horses.
Are you with the pig? Are you with the pigs at the end of their life?
Am I what?
Are you with the pigs at the end of their life?
Am I with them at the end of their life? I know exactly what happens to them. I know which abattoir they're going to. I know how they're going to be treated in that abattoir. And it's all pretty humane. In fact, one of the most humane countries on the planet.
So, I guess, how would you humanely kill a pig, for instance?
How would you humanely kill?
Humanely kill a pig?
It will be electric shock straight in the middle of the head, instant, and it is instant. Immediately gets hung up, and it is dead already. Then it will be drained.
Do you think at the volume we're producing pigs, for instance, that they can do it consistently each time without any mistakes from the pig's perspective, and things don't go according to plan, for instance?
In proper abattoirs, yeah. This is not proper. Okay. This is abusive. It has very little to do with any sort of farming that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But it does exist.
And my understanding is that this is the vast majority of the supply in the UK comes from something like this, not between 94 and 98%. I don't know if you have a different understanding.
I have a different understanding, and I have a different knowledge.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. And no, I would say that is definitely not anywhere close to that sort of figure.
So what percent would you say is factory farm like this?
I wouldn't. It's so little, and I would come across that so rarely, having mixed with the farming community virtually all my life. All 57 years of it.
It rotates around, so we've got chickens here.
Oh yeah, that is gross.
So in your scenario, talking about happy pigs, do you think it's perhaps happy animals? Do you think it's perhaps more of an injustice, killing an animal that wants to live possibly more than the animals in this situation?
Sorry, can you ask me that question again? Because it was an extraordinary question. Go on. Well, you're talking fundamentally about whether you should actually eat pigs or not. If you didn't farm them, they wouldn't have a reason to exist, and therefore they would be wiped out.
Do you feel like there's a biological need for us to eat animals?
Yes. A biological need? No.
Specific nutrients?
Yes, of course.
So what nutrients do you feel like we need to eat animals for to survive?
I would rather eat properly than eat pills where I don't know where those chemicals.
I agree. I agree. Pills are not the answer.
I know where all meat that I eat, I know where it's come from. When you say to me 90% of animals bred like this, you are completely deluded.
Okay.
It doesn't happen.
If you have resources to the contrary, I'd really like to hear that. That would be great to hear.
But you don't need the resources. You just need to go and see it for yourself.
Did you connect with any of the pigs or other animals when you were farming them? Did you connect with them? Bond with them, for instance? I guess because my understanding is that pigs are more intelligent than dogs, for instance. And I volunteered in an animal sanctuary, and there's a couple of pigs where I see the same ones every week and give them belly rubs, and they started to come to know me. And I'm just curious if you've had a similar experience.
Well, of course. Yes, they're your animals. Ultimately, they're there for a reason.
Does that mean it lives out its life?
Yeah.
How long do pigs live in your experience? In a farming setting.
Well, they'll have a good time for about 25 years if they want.
Yeah, because they live quite long, right?
Yeah.
So you'll let them live out for the full 25 years.
Well, if they. This sounds incredibly unfair. If they've earned it, yeah.
It's good to have an open exchange.
If they've earned it, yeah.
So how do they earn it?
By doing what they're there to do.
So if they stop doing what they're there to do, does that mean that's...
Yeah, because you cannot run a farm with animals that aren't productive. Right? If you don't farm them at all, then they will die out.
So do you think pigs will go extinct if we don't farm them?
Will they go extinct? They probably won't go extinct, but there certainly won't be the numbers, and they will become endangered.
Well, it's really interesting to hear your perspective. I think it's great that you're willing to talk about it. I think regardless
you're prepared to listen to me as well, so that's cool.
Yeah, it's great. I've spoken with a number of abattoirs that it's I don't know. It sounds like you've probably spent some time at abattoirs as well.
Who knew animal bones are the main constituent of every glue that all of us use?
Yeah, and that's a great point. And as long as we're living in a non-vegan world, I think it's very difficult to completely exclude that. I think the important thing is that we're doing what we can. Did you have any companion animals, any dogs or cats on the farm?
Yeah.
So would you consider doing that when a dog can no longer work the farm? Would you put it down?
No.
What do you think is different between a dog and a pig?
If it's a working dog, I can understand why people would do that. Would just put it down.
You think that's okay?
I've never. Yeah, because it's a working dog. When it's a working animal, yeah, I think farmers know what they're doing. Do they like that bit? No, not one bit. Do you think you enjoy having an animal put down because it's no longer serving a purpose? No, it's not an enjoyable thing. It's a necessity, and it actually helps to maintain the species. So when you said earlier, will pigs become extinct? I'm afraid I regard that as the most ridiculous question, because no, they won't.
I guess what we're talking about today, given 98% of the way we use animals is our food, while these other, I think stray dogs are a big problem. As you say, wildlife.
90, but to turn around to me and say 90% of farming is like that is a joke. It's absolutely hysterical.
So I'm referring to a different statistic. So I'm specifically saying if you look at all the ways we use animals. So we talked about leather, we talked about animal. Well, we haven't yet, but if you think about animal testing, the vast majority is for our food supply. Yeah. So I think a lot of these considerations you raise are really important. I think the food supply is one of the biggest.
By break it down, I mean having all the meat taken off.
Have you seen that personally?
Yeah, I've done it.
Yeah, the actual slaughter and through that process.
Yeah.
How did that experience kind of impact on you?
It's how it works. It's how.
Do you think if there's an alternative that should be considered? I'd say veganism.
What?
I would say veganism.
Well, good luck with that.
So, what's been your experience with veganism?
My experience of it, I'm really not going to go there, but I do not want to be sustained by vegetables alone, because we're all actually, like I say,
me neither. Brighton's a hub for vegan food. Everything, they've got vegan pizza, vegan ice cream, vegan yogurt, everything these days. So I agree. I don't want to eat just vegetables either. There's lentils, beans. I used to eat a very bland diet when I was an omnivore, and it's much.
We're all going to end up eating insects anyway. Like I said, I think we've come back to the beginning of our conversation.
Yeah, no, and I really appreciate you taking the time to stop, because I think there's a lot of consideration. Like, it's going back to the insect thing real quickly. Do you think that the planet could be sustained if more of us were vegan?
No.
So
because there isn't enough land, fertile land, to grow it.
Do you think it takes more plants to feed animals versus eating the plants directly?
No.
Oh, thank you for stopping.
Cube of truth?
Yeah, so there's the cube.
Okay.
Pleasure meeting you. You have a nice, lovely day. Thank you very much.
To my point of view as well, so that's cool.
Yeah, so that was the interview. During the interview, I assessed that this individual was likely in the pre-contemplation stage. I suspect they may have been in their contemplation stage during the farming career, and at some point have moved back to pre-contemplation, meaning that not really acknowledging that there's an issue that anything needs to be addressed or changed with. So I really just focused on building awareness on the what's happening to the animals, and briefly touched on other topics such as no biological necessity to eat animals, and also some of the land use concerns that were more in response to what he brought up. So I really focused on open-ended Socrates-style questions, really just trying to help us both think and have an open exchange, because that's all we can really do. We can't force somebody to believe something. So at one point in the interview, you may have seen in the captions, I called it out. I definitely triggered a shame response in regards to the statistic that the vast majority of farming in the UK winds up at places like we're on the screens we're watching. The first time I brought it up, I could tell he was visibly uncomfortable with this suggestion, that he could have been contributing to this his whole life. So when I brought up a different statistic that he thought I was referring to the same one again, I was quite quick to try to move the conversation along, and fortunately we were able to bring it back to a positive place. So it goes to show that even if we feel something strongly, sometimes it helps to move to different topics that the person might be more open to. So at some points in the interview, and perhaps throughout, it may seem like I'm quite agreeable. I'm not doing this because I necessarily agree with what a person's saying, but what I am doing is trying to build a supportive environment where people feel like they can share, which I feel like worked quite well in this instance. If you have any other thoughts, or there's something I missed, or you like what we're doing, or you just have an idea for something I could try in the future, be sure to let me know in the comments down below. So thanks a lot for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that.
Okay, don't be. Because I'm a bastard farmer.
Not at all, mate. Not at all.
You like me? She did.
It is, yes.